Hello everyone! Welcome to Cracked with Siobhan Aris. Today I'm joined by Kara Bussey of Glimpse Glass. A natural communicator from her decade working in communications, she's now got her focus on communicating how to in her new book, Stained Glass for Beginners. She also has a very successful social media presence and has gone viral multiple times with her stained glass videos. So we spent a lot of time chatting about what works for engagement in her posts and what doesn't. One of the things I loved about Kara was her ability to authentically share her vulnerabilities and anxiety that she's experienced behind the curtain, so to speak. I was so happy to hold space for this conversation, and I think we can all relate. At least I can. Social media is complicated, and putting yourself out there is very complicated. Join me as I crack it all wide open. Hello, Kara. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here.
To introduce you, your name is Kara Bussey. You're the founder, instructor, and TikTok extraordinaire of Glimpse Glass. To kick this off, I just want to read your bio real quick on your website. Glimpse Glass is a family business creating whimsical home decor and wearable art from our homes in Calgary and on Vancouver Island. All pieces are handcrafted to break the mold, spelled with a U because you're Canadian, using the whimsy of nature as inspiration. Items are created using Tiffany stained glass techniques, where glass pieces are hand cut, copper foiled, soldered together, then polished. What is Glimpse Glass Folk?
That's a really good question. So it's actually something that we just established a couple months ago. So it came out of the whole idea that we were one big business, but that I'm on social media and I'm putting myself out there, and my parents don't live in the same place that I do, so I couldn't involve them in the social media as much as I would like to represent them as a brand. And so what was happening was people were going to our site and they were finding all of their art and thinking it was mine. And not that I have a problem with that, but I wanted them to have better representation within like the Glimpse Glass brand. So we branched off. I no longer sell on Etsy, and they only sell on Etsy under the name Glimpse Glass Folk. And they also wholesale, and I manage all of that for them, all the customer interactions. And we work together on designing their products and just making sure that everything is going smoothly, because that's where my expertise is. I do all their photography as well. But that's where that came from. And then I branched out onto my own website, and that's where I'm selling, because Glimpse Glass, really, when you think of Glimpse Glass, you really think of me. So I didn't want my parents to kind of be swept under the rug. And so Glimpse Glass Folk, because really what they do, thank you. So really what they do is a lot simpler than my wreaths. They don't do any wreaths. All of the wreaths are me, and all of like the moons and more whimsical stuff. And their stuff is much simpler. So they're doing like feathers and like little mountains and like ocean themed stuff, like really nature inspired and simple, and not necessarily following all of the strict rules of stained glass. So
it's your mom and dad.
It's my mom and stepdad, yeah. So Astrid and John, and they live out on Vancouver Island.
And so you're in Calgary.
I am, yeah. With
okay.
My husband and 2 daughters and 2 cats.
And is that how you learned stained glass, from your mom and dad?
So that's actually a funny story. I learned in high school when I was 16 years old. So that was like more than 20 years ago. And I actually got my mom interested. So when I graduated from high school, I came back on a work term to Parksville, where they live. Well, they live in Arrington, and I said to my mom, because she's always been creative and we've always done so much art around the house. And I was like, I really love stained glass. Like, I was super ambitious from the beginning. My third project was a lamp. And so I asked her, do you want to do stained glass with me? And so we did this, like, we studied with a local artist and went to her house every week and worked with her and improved our skills that way. And so that's how my mom learned. And then as the years went by, I opened my Glimpse Glass business in 2013 on Etsy, back when Etsy was just in its infancy. And I got pregnant and I couldn't keep up with the demand that existed on Etsy. And my mom was basically like, let me help. So she jumped on and started doing the stuff that I was doing at that time, which was a lot of terrariums and like basic like garden stakes and that sort of fun stuff. And we got so busy that my stepdad was like, one time we were at a show, and actually my mom had a car accident on the way to come out to the show.
Oh,
And we
no.
lost quite a bit of inventory. It was really awful. And so we were literally like throwing things in the garbage can as we were pulling them out of the box. It was traumatizing. At least it was all clear glass, but it was like, it was a lot to process at the time. And my stepdad just basically taught himself based on what he had seen my mom doing, and sent us inventory for our show. And he used to be a welder. So honestly, like his technique and solder lines were amazing. Like you wouldn't know that he hadn't been doing it for 5 years at that point already. So, and I guess he had been with the welding and whatnot, but he's a perfectionist. So that's how we all kind of came in together, and it's kind of flowed and evolved over the 8 years. And here we are now, Glimpse Glass and Glimpse Glass folks. So yeah.
I love that. And what did your mom do before she did stained glass?
Oh, it's so funny. My mom was an accountant. And she was quite miserable at it. Like she's always been like an accountant, bookkeeper, and it was never really her calling. Like growing up, for instance, like we were never really well off, and my mom was a single mom from the time I was 3, with 3 kids. And so she did things like she made Christmas wreaths and sold them for money to buy my brother's bed. Like, so the art has always been in there as like in the background, and then accounting was how she made her money.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny that it kind of came full circle. Like I went to school for 7 years, and I have a Bachelor of Arts and a postgrad certificate. My undergrad is in French. I have no clue why. And then my postgrad, I had these like grandiose ideas that I wanted to be a diplomat, but I actually interviewed for a job with CSIS, and I couldn't pass the security test because I'm just too emotional. Like I wouldn't stand up under torture. So honestly, it was the craziest process I'd ever been through. It was like they psychologically tortured you until you cry. Well, it didn't take much.
Wait, hold on. Wait, what is CSIS?
Oh, that's actually a good point. Okay. CSIS is like the spy agency for Canada.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
So the interview I went through was the same as the one for CSIS, but my interview was for the communications security group. So I would have been working in communications, which is what my training and my postgrad is in. Yeah, but I failed. And so I was like, okay, so clearly this is it's not for me.
Yeah.
Like I can't do this. And so I became a communicator, and that's what I trained in. And I went to school for 7 years, and I did that for over 10 years. I had 2 babies, and the whole time, like since 2013, I've been running my business in the background. And it just came full circle that it was like, art is really what I want to be doing with my life. And it's the same for my mom. Like she was an accountant, and she was, I don't want to say I wasn't happy at my job, because I wasn't. I love my job, and communications is really creative in itself. Like there's a lot of document design, there's a lot of social media, there's a lot of just like writing to influence, which is a lot of what you do in art. If you don't have the art skills to go with the, like, if you don't have the communication skills to go with the art skills, it's really hard to be successful, right?
Yeah.
So my mom now works under Glimpse Glass. I want to say she works for me. She doesn't work for me anymore. We actually fully split the 2 businesses because they were working for me for a while. But now they're both in this creative sphere, and she works part-time at a bookstore, and she's much happier with her life. So it's kind of a parallel story to mine, where like I just realized that art was really what I wanted to be doing. And yeah, so I quit my job in May too. And so now we're all technically like unemployed
Oh my
artists.
gosh. Okay. All right. You just said so much. I have so many questions already about everything we've just covered. Okay. First of all, let's roll it back to you're doing stained glass. You said it in the background, but basically in your free time when you're not at your full-time job and you get pregnant and did you work through both your pregnancies doing stained glass and doing your full-time job?
I did. So I know you interviewed Hannah from Sand and
Mhm.
Fireworks. I wasn't quite as intense as she was. I feel like for me, it was kind of like I was working a lot, like especially when I was pregnant because I didn't have the baby. But when the
Uh-huh.
baby came, it was a whole different ball game. Like I remember um, trying to prepare for a Christmas show and like walking down like dripping from feeding the baby and just being like, I'm so tired. And I had to tone it back. And Hannah mentioned too that we get kind of like we get maternity leave, right? So we get
Mhm.
paid by the government. So any money that I was making at Glass was clawed back um, off of my maternity leave. So the benefit wasn't there for me. So I took a huge step back. But that wasn't because I was afraid of the lead or the chemicals. It was just because I needed that for my own
Mhm.
mental well-being.
Yeah.
And I also had my parents because I think like after my first baby and like Capri, she's 6 now, I realized how hard it was on my business to take so much time away. Like nobody was posting regularly on my social media. I already had
Mhm.
3,500 followers at that point, which I mean in today's world doesn't feel like a lot, but it felt like a lot back then.
Mhm.
And they were just dead followers when I came back. It was like they had packed up and moved on to another life.
Mm.
So during my
Mhm.
next pregnancy, it was kind of like, okay, let's keep this going. And when Sky was born, I kept going, but again, like not not crazy, just for my own mental well-being because it gets to be too much. Like being a mom, and I think people cope differently with it, but for me, being a mom was a huge part of my brain, and to switch that off was really hard for me. So I
Yes.
needed the outlet to be creative, but I didn't want it to feel like I had to do it because that sucks a lot of the joy out of it.
Yeah, and you're not the first artist that I've spoken to about the mom stuff, and there seems to be this like stigma, like this guilt with needing to do your own thing, to step away, to step back into who you are and what feeds you in order to come back and actually be a better mother.
I couldn't let glass go entirely. It was like it's so ingrained in me. Like I've at this point now I've been doing it like mostly on for 20 years, right? So it was funny when I eventually did quit my job. It was kind of like this like moment where it was like something has to give in my life. And I said to my husband, and I'm like, I cried for so many days. My grandmother actually passed away, my Oma, earlier this year in April. And it was like a breaking point for me. It was just like something has to give in my life. Like I'm a mom. I work full time at Glass. I work full time during the day. And at that point, I was also writing a book and it was just too much. And I said to Chris, my husband, I was like, something has to give. I'm like,
Mhm.
and I guess it has to be Glass because we kind of talked in circles about it because like I like in my career I was successful too. Like as a communicator, I had over 10 years of experience and I had risen to the highest level without being a manager, which was kind of I didn't want to be a manager. It was like, where do I go? And do I find another job? Is that going to make me happier? And it really came down to like I need to have Glass. And so I told my husband, I was like, I need to quit Glass. Like, I guess that's what has to give because there's not enough money in Glass to be full time. And he's like, you can't quit Glass. And I was like, okay, so we need to figure this out. And we did.
Yeah. So this just happened? How long ago did you quit your full-time job as a
Um,
communicator?
so I gave my notice in April and they
Mhm.
asked for a month notice. So I gave
Mhm.
that to them. So I finished in May.
Okay. So
So
you've been free now for what, 4 months? Is that right?
that sounds about right. Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
feel now?
I don't know how I ever had a full-time job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, and I have two kids, right? So, and with school, and daycare and all of the birthday parties and the weekends, and there's so many things you don't think of. And they get so many days off. So one of the trade-offs was that my daughter couldn't go to daycare. So she now comes home at the end of the day. So at 3 o'clock, I have a hard stop to my day, and
Mhm.
we're recording on a Friday, so it's a half day for her. So um, I'm done at 12:30, right? So
Mhm.
it's, yeah, it's finding time. I'm still working in my evenings. I still work during the day. Um, I also incorporated, so that adds a lot of extra layers of prep and requirements to running the business.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people who are seeing artists on Instagram don't really think about what happens behind the scenes. And
Mhm.
there's so much. Like I spend hours and hours and hours working on my website, and the finances are insane. I know Hannah said she loves the finances, and I hate it.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate it.
Yeah. You didn't get the accounting gene from your mom.
No, well, mom didn't get the accounting gene.
Speaking of your mom, what was it like working with her?
She's awesome. So we kind of have the same kind of free spirit
Mhm.
approach to things. And so um, when we created her listings for Etsy, instead of being like, this is the feather you get, we have, or this is the mountain you get, we did it so that it's like, to keep it interesting for her, it's a surprise color. So you can pick a color theme, but within that theme, we're going to give you like the glass that we feel in the moment, right? Or that we have on hand. So she gets to
Mhm.
play with colors and even kind of tweak the designs a little bit.
Mhm.
And that's been quite successful. So um, working with them though, it's interesting. Like obviously, anytime you go into business with someone, you have to love them and trust them. And
Mhm.
I do love them and trust them very much. So the last 8 years or however long they each of them have come in at have been really great. It's also challenging because you're dealing with money to work with
Mhm.
anyone, right? So there's
Right.
no formal contract when you're working with your family, and so we've been really fortunate to keep a good relationship going.
Yeah,
Even with the
everybody's
business,
been
we're really tolerant of each other. I'm always like, Mom, are you mad at me? She's like, Mom, I'm never mad at you.
Aw.
Thank God, because
Yeah.
I can be so bossy. I'm a bossy boss.
Sometimes people need, like, very clear direction, though, and there's no other way to transmit that than to seem bossy, you know?
Exactly. Well, and just like, yeah, little things that drive me nuts about stained glass, and then trying to tell, like, it's, when you see somebody's art on the internet and you're like, ooh, like,
Mhm.
they should have done that differently. And then I'm sure people think that about my art too, but it's hard when especially when it represents my brand, right? So it's like
Yeah, it's
working through
different.
that, it's rocky.
That
But
is
it's
different
good.
when
It's
somebody's
good.
work has to represent yours. That's different. You have to be very straightforward, and I can definitely can see how if I was trying to, you know, if I was in that position, I might seem bossy too.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Hannah Hastings from At Sand and Fireworks a couple times. You guys are pretty good friends, right?
I call I hope the feeling is mutual, but I call her my glass bestie. Like
Aw.
honestly, whenever she's been amazing over the last, especially the last year. Um, Whenever I have like a complaint or an issue, it's really tempting to go and just like blast it, but
Mhm.
I don't have to do that because she understands where I'm coming from. Like I can talk to her about it and we work through issues. She kind of like she knows what I'm going through and I know what she's going through. And
Mhm.
so I've really found a lot of support in her. And same with Galadriel Glassworks. Anna Fredrickson, she's been amazing support. She's like the sweetheart of glass. She's so kind and just really amazing. The whole Instagram community actually in general has been so supportive.
I was looking at your stories and I saw that you had shown us sort of some things that you were doing on your computer, and I was wondering if you could share with us what design program you use.
Sure. So I actually use Concepts Pro for the Android tablet, and it's not my favorite program. I picked an Android tablet because I have all Google devices in my home. I
Mhm.
think one day I'd like to upgrade to an iPad just because Procreate comes with a lot of positive things about it that you can't do in concepts. Having said
Mhm.
that, concepts is amazing. And for basic line work, it's amazing. Like the difference between drawing by hand for somebody like me I'm not great at drawing like by hand.
Mhm.
I think I'm very creative. Like I can think of something in my brain
Mhm.
and then but like putting it onto paper is really
Mhm.
hard.
Mhm.
So drawing on the tablet, you can smooth your lines out and make them nice and curved and just like poke things around and move them. And moving to designing on a tablet has been life changing for me. Like it was like
Mhm.
I can't draw to like, oh, actually I can do this. So
Right.
and like the ability to use reference photos and just kind of like piece things together. It's so powerful. Yeah.
You have been very busy. Not only are you cranking out tons of content online, but you have a book coming out, correct?
I do. It's
I want to
I'm
talk about
so
that.
I'm so nervous about it, Siobhan. Like, holy crow. Um, there's my Canadian expression coming up. Holy crow. People are like, did you just say that? I'm like, I didn't even realize I said that. Holy crow. Um, I actually started writing this book last November and I submitted the manuscript in March and it was supposed to come out in the summer, but it was delayed because of a whole host of reasons, but mostly on their end, actually
Mhm.
on their end, on the publisher's end. And it's finally coming out mid-October. So as of recording this right now, I don't have an exact date, but they're telling me October 13th, and then it'll be on their website for pre-orders and hopefully like not for pre-orders, for downloads, digital
Mhm.
downloads, and then there will be physical copies of the book as well. But I think things are changing a little bit with the COVID era and moving online. So
Yeah.
it's really exciting. And I had the opportunity to actually be in Neely's book. She included me as one of the artists in her book, which was overwhelming. And I don't want to downplay my book, but it's like I feel so honored to be in her book. My book is it's done under like a traditional like DIY like classic like maker book. I think the publisher was really surprised when I handed in the manuscript because they were like, "Oh, we kind of wanted this to be like a pick up and go book at like Hobby Lobby," and I'm like, "You can't do that for stained glass.
Mm-mm. No, you
You can't.
cannot.
You can't." So we kind of collaborated and we decided that it really was like a take it home, read it, and then come back and buy your supplies because I go through everything from safety to like setting up your workspace and then to like the essentials. But then these are all the things you're going to hear other people talking about that you don't necessarily need right now, but you might want to consider in the future.
Mhm.
And then I have 8 patterns, and each pattern teaches you a new skill. So the first pattern is a feather,
Mhm.
and it teaches you all of the skills, like the basic skills, cutting, blah blah blah. And then I go through and do a monstera, and then you learn like cutting inside curves and doing patina work. And then there's a mirror, working with mirror. There's pressed flowers. Um, there's all sorts of different skills that I think modern glass artists would be interested in learning. And then additionally, at the end, there's a piece on patterning. So making your own patterns, things to watch out for, and also copyright, because I think that's a huge deal right
Mhm.
now, especially for beginners. People just don't know that you can't take somebody else's work and reproduce it. So trying to educate that and work that into the book as well. So I think it's informative. It's really compact. There's a lot of pictures that are done by them. I do all of my own like step-in photography. So like the steps in the projects, which was really hard.
Mhm.
I'm like, I take pictures for social media all the time, but trying to make them look good for a book was a whole nother level. So And I want to stress, like, Neely's book is going to be completely different than mine. It was really shocking when I saw her come up with, I'm writing a book, and I was like, oh my God, I'm writing a book too, and I haven't told anybody about it. And I still haven't really told my followers about it because I have incredible anxiety.
Yes. Well, here, you know what? I can speak to that a little bit because I didn't write a book, but I came out with a podcast,
Yeah,
and it's scary. It's a vulnerability that is different than just posting a picture of your glass. And it's more personal. It's a more elaborate project. And most of us are not, I'm not a podcaster, and you have never written a book before. So we definitely feel like we're green in that way too. And also, I did not say one peep about the podcast to anybody really until there was a button you could click. I didn't want to like start hyping the podcast and then have people not too excited about it by the time it came out. So I think that there is power to holding on to it until you can say, look, I have an announcement, and here you can click a button right now while I have your attention about it and buy the
exactly.
book. So there's
Exactly.
benefits to that, but I get what you're saying, and it's scary. It's scary.
It's scary. I don't know how it's going to be perceived. And like, when I was submitting the manuscript, I was literally at like mental breakdown status. Like,
Yeah.
it was like I couldn't sleep. Like, I was having, like, I would wake up in the middle of the night and have panic attacks. Um, the truth is, like, in modern stained glass, we break a lot of rules,
Mhm.
and a lot of it is intentional. Like, when you're dealing with small pieces of glass, which is what a lot of beginners are doing, you don't necessarily need to follow all of the rules, in my opinion. And other people are going to say that's completely wrong. You need to always put your jump hoops in a solder line, regardless of the size. I'm like, but I have pieces of glass that have been around my house for 10 years that are hanging on foil, and they're not showing any signs of giving up. So if
Got
you
it.
buy an ornament for $20 and it lasts for 10 years, I think you're doing pretty well.
Mhm.
Like, or more than that, right? Unless you're like yanking on it. So I was really nervous about that. I'm worried about how people will perceive me. And I just think in stained glass, there's so many different ways to do things that we can't judge other people for doing it a different way.
As long
Like,
as they're being safe, right. It sounds to me like the anxiety that you're feeling is mostly about what other stained glass artists will think.
yeah, I don't know. It's really tough when you live your life on social media, and you're so used to being judged at every step. Everything you put out or do is documented, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then to be able to delete it when I want to, right? But with a book, it's out there.
Mhm.
So yeah, and dealing with the legalities behind a book and putting my name on it and my brand
Mhm.
name.
What is the name of the book?
It's beginner stained glass.
Oh, I like that. That's easy to
So
search for.
yeah, so the publisher of my book is a company called Leisure Arts, and
Mhm.
they actually approached me in November and asked me to write a book. It completely blindsided me, and um, I know, like, Neely's process was really long, and the um, she had to put together a proposal and all of that.
Mhm.
They literally asked me 3 questions, and then they were like, "Hey, sign on the dotted line," and I was like, "What is happening right now?"
Wow.
I thought it was a hoax, but I had to Google and like look up other people that have written books for them, and it's not a hoax. They're real. So they do, Leisure Arts does books primarily for the DIY crafters. So a lot of what they've been around since the 70s. And they did a lot of pattern books for crochet and knitting, and that sort of thing. And
Mhm.
like in the last 10 years, they've really branched out. So they've got books in all different mediums, from like working with Cricut to like resin art to like I can't even, punch needle.
Mhm.
So it's all over the place. Um, yeah, but stained glass is a different level. I think, again, they were shocked at how much information I put into the book, but I think it's essential.
I
So
think so too. I think you're right, and I think we all have different little things that we do, but as long as you're being safe and as long
yeah,
as things are able to withstand the test of time,
yeah,
then I think
and you're having fun.
And you're having fun. Yes. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
be gentle with yourself because this is hard business putting yourself out there. It really is. You're
It
doing
is.
an amazing job.
Thank you. So
You
are
know,
you.
oh, thank you. Speaking to the social media side of things, I think maybe one of the reasons why you were asked to write a book is because you do have incredible content for your social media. You are so loved on social media. Let's talk about this for a second. How many TikTok followers do you have?
I think it's about 46,000 right now.
How many Instagram followers do you have?
21 and a half thousand,
How
which is
many
crazy.
How many Facebook followers do you have?
I hit 10,000 last night. It's crazy, crazy.
Yeah,
So
those
it's,
people are not going to poo-poo your book. They want to see it. They want to read it.
but Siobhan, I have to tell you, like when they approached me to write the book, and what I didn't have that many followers. I hadn't even opened a TikTok account at that point. So my TikTok account was opened at the end of February. Like I had actually videos before, but I hadn't done anything on TikTok, and I deleted everything because nothing had taken any traction.
Hmm.
And I just started posting more new videos and sending them to my friends to start getting views, because TikTok was literally giving me zero views, like
Hmm.
zero. Um, and interacting on the platform to see what other people were doing, and then it just exploded. And the same thing happened with Facebook, where it was like I had all these reels from
Hmm.
TikTok and from Instagram, and I just happened across Facebook one day, because I do the same thing that everybody does with Facebook. I just auto post everything over from Instagram to Facebook.
Hmm.
Minimal effort. I had like 500 followers. It was just kind of nice and easy. And then I found the Reels feature, and I'm hearing that it might be not available to everyone. I'm not 100% sure,
Hmm.
but you have to manually post your Reels on Facebook. And I started posting them, and they started getting traction. And then a couple weeks ago, they all went viral at the exact same time.
Wow.
Yeah, we're talking like 700, 800,000 views on multiple videos, and hundreds of comments, and like 30,000 likes on some of them. It was just, and the same thing happened on TikTok. It was just like, boom. So my advice to people who want to succeed right now in that space, you need to be making videos. You need to be making videos for your audience, not necessarily for you.
Yeah.
And you need to make videos about your art, and not necessarily how you feel about doing art. Because
Mm.
the feeling videos, they are great for other small business owners, and I've done them too. It kind of rounds it out. Those videos resonate with other small business owners, but they don't necessarily resonate with the general population. So
Yeah.
yeah, just keeping your audience in mind. But make content, just make it. It might suck. You might feel embarrassed. Put it out there, see what happens. Don't ever
Right.
delete anything. You can always private things, but not everything is going to be a success, and there's always going to be ups and downs, but just
Hmm.
keep plowing forward and making content. Find what works.
You need to teach me how to use TikTok.
It's on. I'm totally there for it. And otherwise people are like, can you help me? Because usually I'm like, unsolicited advice. I'm so bad, and I hope people know that it comes from a place of caring, and not because I'm like, you're doing it wrong. It's like, I know you can succeed at this if you just like tweak it slightly. It's gonna happen. And I'm not an expert. I learn every day, and I think that that analytical side of my brain that comes from me being a communicator for 10 years, like that
Hmm.
was my job, was social media and like writing and planning, right, for
Hmm.
communication. So it's where my brain automatically migrates. It's like, how do I make this reach more people? So,
Hmm.
and then my mom, she said to me the other day, she's like, you really need to decide what you're going to do. Are you doing social media, or are you doing glass? And it's like, I don't know if one exists without the other. So
Yeah, you kind of have to be both these days,
you
unfortunately.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, I can't make video. And it's like, the only way to learn is to do it.
Yeah, that's very true.
Oh my goodness. We my videos from, I want to say like not even a year ago, are horrible. Like absolutely horrible. And so it just takes practice.
It
They're
just
so
takes
bad, like
practice.
the
It's just like
lighting and
glass. It's another medium. It's another art form. It's another learning curve. You just have to practice.
yeah, yeah. But I think that back to like the original question, I think that the book publisher found me on Etsy.
Oh,
And
okay.
I've been on Etsy since 2013. We have about 2,000 sales, which is
Mhm.
not like exorbitant or anything like that, but Etsy has afforded me so many opportunities over the years, and I think that the credit for this one goes to Etsy because people go to Etsy to find creatives.
Mhm.
I've been like my art's been featured on like local television. It's been featured in Maclean's. It's been featured like in the Etsy like lookbook for the year like for the season. They included me in trade shows. Like Etsy has been amazing. So I still maintain now, even though I'm not personally on Etsy anymore. My parents are on Etsy. If you're just starting out or you need more audience, Etsy is the place to be. And
Mm.
like Glass and Glass, she just won the award for, I think it was Fan People's Choice on Etsy. And
Mm.
so stained glass artists actually being profiled. So, and same with Glow Glass.
Mhm.
I think you're interviewing her. She also won an award through Etsy. And so it's amazing to see like the power of that, even though it feels more corporate now than it did back then. Like we used to be able to rate our customers. We gave reviews to our own customers. You can't do that anymore. But it's still an amazing platform and super powerful for people who are looking for that audience.
I'm so glad to hear that you've had a good experience with it.
I know a lot of people haven't. I know that there's give and take to everything. But that exposure, especially if you're not great on social media, is amazing.
Mhm.
Can't
Mhm.
beat it.
We had a couple questions come in. One is, I'd love to hear more about how you adjust your marketing to keep up with the platforms you're selling on.
For social media, um, which is the main way that I market myself, I basically pick and choose which videos fit different platforms. So on TikTok, I found that a lot of people are really interested in learning videos.
Mhm.
So videos about using hobby cam or like the hobby cam versus copper foil. I did 2 videos and they did really, really well. Whereas I haven't even posted those on Instagram because a lot of my base is established glass artists. So
Mhm.
I almost feel like I would be alienating them, but maybe I'm wrong. Um, I don't know. I just feel like Facebook or Instagram wants more polished, whereas TikTok is okay, like off the cuff. So in that regard, I'm kind of adjusting. And then Facebook, I wasn't posting anything, and then I just started posting everything. And I haven't posted any of the learning videos, but they seem to be really into that on the Facebook side as well. So we'll see how that goes. I have to stress like 9,500 of these followers are new, so I don't know what they want.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but basically, figuring out your audience.
You had another question come in from Meredith.Caspell. How do you deal with the competitive aspect of the business?
This is a really good question because there's a lot of hype around community over competition,
Yes.
and I genuinely believe that community is more important than competition.
Mhm.
Once you have that community, you don't need to compete because you're all supporting each other and helping each other and you're creating extra channels to get your work seen. Like Hannah and I know from Sand and Fireworks, we're direct competitors in a lot of ways. Like she makes hair pieces and I make headbands, and she makes 3D like succulents, and I make wreaths with 3D things on them, and I've made succulents myself as well too. But there's no point in dragging each other down. It's easier to build each other up, and you feel so much better about yourself too. Like
Yeah.
you when you and I can't remember who was talking about it, but like it's a small world, and when you're mean or negative to people, it
Mhm.
gets around. So I mean, I've had some falling outs with people along the way where it's not perfect. it
Mhm.
it happens. Like we're all human, but
Mhm.
generally I think it's a beautiful thing to create that community.
With stained glass, with any community, really, when the water rises, all the boats rise with it. So if we're
Yeah,
all celebrating each other and lifting each other up, I think that that's going to help us all. And that doesn't mean that
exactly.
sometimes I don't get insecure or feel threatened, and it's a place
Exactly.
that I am not proud of within myself. But as long as you see that right away and put it in its place, if you are doing you and you're doing it well, and if you're putting good energy out there, it's going to come back to you. And
That's
I
so
think
true.
with you, you're energetic in your videos and on your social media as a whole. You're very bubbly. You're very smiley and happy. And I think you're just like putting out really good positive energy. I do.
I try.
It shows.
Um, it doesn't, thank you. It doesn't mean that there's not hard truths that come with that too. And I think like there's nothing to be gained from lying or stretching the truth with
Hmm.
people. Like if there's something that's wrong or that they can improve on, or that you think like their viewpoint is a little bit skewed on, I think we should be honest with each other too. Like, because it doesn't help someone to play into their fears and their
Hmm.
anxieties. Um, yeah. So I think that's part of lifting people up. It's being honest and helpful and supportive. And that's not always easy either, right? So
No, it's not. We all have those small parts of ourselves that do not want to do that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
I think that we can all do better. Even if we
100%.
think we're doing a good job, we can all do better.
It's true. It's true.
Work in progress. We're all works in progress. And in this shiny, happy, bubbly image that we show on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever, a lot of times is not real either, right? I think it's important just to say that out loud, just because I don't want to say it's a dishonest veil, but it's a very filtered veil in terms of like what we really are going through.
Yeah, it's a highlight reel.
It is a highlight reel of your life. Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
it's funny because I talk about my relationship with Hannah, Sand and Fireworks, and how and the glass community as a whole. It's just so grounding for me because when I started, I would get upset. Somebody would copy me or whatever. I'd be so offended, and then I'd go straight to my stories and like, or this might have even been before stories were even existing, and just
Mhm.
like put them on blast. And it's like putting that negative energy out there and that
Mhm.
like struggle out there. Number one, people don't want to see it. It's
Mhm.
sad. Like it's really
Mhm.
sad. But number two, it doesn't help anybody. It's making negative ripples in the world. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I did post about how I have been kind of picked on and that I want people to be kind. And I think it's like if you wanna, yeah, I don't know. You just it's hard to be vulnerable. It
It
really
is. It is. And if you open
is.
the door, to, you make your public persona public, you're literally opening a door, and so you can't control what comes in.
Yeah. Well, and coming from someone who's physically been threatened on the internet on a couple of occasions where I've had to report them for harassment, and like I've actually felt afraid for my own safety and my family's safety, like it feels super vulnerable to put anything out there.
Mhm.
We're not perfect, but making an effort every day.
No, I know, and I've just been like, these last couple years, just the state of the world and the politics, and it's like if it's not Afghanistan, then it's something that's happening here, and if it's not this, then it's COVID. And, there's so many dark things that are happening that I think now more than ever we really need to just like chill out and be nice, and we don't know what the other person is going through, and just giving everybody a little bit more grace than we're used to giving them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Honestly, we
tough.
all need it right now.
Yes to all of that. Well, you spoke a little bit on this earlier, but your husband's very supportive of your glass world life.
Definitely. So he's always been super supportive of glass. And I don't want to say it's always been my goal to go first time, but ever since I started my Etsy business in 2013, like making garden stakes, it was like, I love this and I really want to do it. And my husband was really supportive of it being kind of in the back burner. And then a couple years ago, we started talking about how we can make it full time.
Mhm.
And the plan was actually that when my my youngest daughter went into kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
we could I could go full time because
Mm-hmm.
childcare is ridiculously expensive here. Like
Mm-hmm.
we pay like $1,300 a month for childcare, and like I can't have her here if I'm working on glass. Um, so that was kind of like the break free point where it was like, okay, we're losing that expense. But my business blew up. Like before I always kind of like tried to keep it tempered down and like at a manageable rate. Like I actually tried wholesaling. Like I know Flannery was talking about that, friend of all glass, about how like that pull, like that desire just to work, 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 and like be super successful. And I definitely felt like that. I was wholesaling and working full time, and it didn't make any sense because it's like you make pennies. But when it's your full-time job, you can actually scale, right? And that was something that I wasn't able to do or manage. And I also found that it sucked the life out of the joy out of it all, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
if I'm gonna be doing it, and my time is valuable, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it needed to be something I wanted to be doing. But yeah, my husband and I had so many tearful, hard discussions. And then in April, it was just like this breaking point, and he's been so supportive and so happy for me. He loves seeing not just the success, but how happy I am. I mean, like we talk about the highs and the lows and everything, but I just love the high highs, and like they come with the low lows. When I was really like, okay, I think I might actually do this, like leave my job of 10 years. And I asked my daughter, what do you think I do for a living? And she said, I don't know. And then I said to her, Capri, I work in communications. I'm a writer. And she looks at me and she goes, I thought you did glass. And I was like, my own daughter knows where my passions are and what I really want to be doing and what my brain is focused on 24/7. Well, not 24/7 because there's a huge chunk that's devoted to my kids, but she knew like where my heart was. And that was a huge moment for me. It was like my 5-year-old is like, you're an artist, like in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. And that really rang true for me too. It was just, yeah. And the support from my coworkers when I left, there were so many stories that came out where people were like, I was a baker and I did all of these farmers markets and I really love baking and I could never make it my full-time job. And one guy was like, I love directing movies and I've actually directed movies. And this other girl is like, I'm a singer and I write songs and I produce. And it's like, this is my job that I do so that I can do that. And it's like, so where does the split happen? But it was so beautiful to hear those stories of people and their passions. And I don't want to say jealousy, but just that moment where it was like I could kind of make it my jam. And there were a lot of sacrifices that needed to be done. And like we had to cut expenses and whatnot. But my husband was super supportive, and the house isn't as clean as it used to be.
Right.
But we're working through it.
Kara, who are your favorite artists?
Oh, I noticed that you asked other artist this question, and I really struggled with how to answer
Mm-hmm.
because I've always been part of like the small maker community and the small artist community, and I've never really had line of sight to the fine artists or that kind of. I know you were talking about like elevating your art. I've never really had like a line of sight to that. So this question I pondered quite a bit because I think my art too is really kind of folksy, whimsical, cottagecore kind of feel, and that doesn't necessarily get elevated to that like fine art level. But I took some notes because I wanted to talk about a few artists that in other mediums that really inspire me. And one local maker here, River of Ceramics, her name is Rima, and she makes pottery, and she does like these little faces on the pottery and like turns them into moons and whatnot. And I think she's like the OG, like she's the original, and she makes the most expressive pieces of pottery, and I'm so in love. And just the way she's marketed herself and scaled herself, it's so admirable that she definitely deserves a place of spotlight. And she's not a big famous artist, but I just
That's
love the
okay.
whimsy. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And a lot of the podcast guests have, named local people or people that they know
Yeah.
personally. And I love that. I mean, look, this whole podcast is about lifting people up and about celebrating people and
Mhm.
celebrating beauty. And it comes from all over, from little
It's true. It's
towns and
true.
big cities alike. So please,
And
I
I think
can't wait to see
I'm
her
just
stuff.
self-conscious about it because and you and I have talked about this before a little bit, and I spoke with Neely about it too. It's this, how do you make the distinction between a maker and an artist? And I'm still not sure.
Hmm.
I'm not sure we need a distinction.
Hmm.
There's room for everyone. It's
Absolutely.
Yeah, but there's definitely a line there, and I'm not sure where it's so blurry.
Hmm.
And as somebody who's not formally trained in art, I was trained in digital art, and I've taken photography and whatnot, but I didn't go to art school
Hmm.
specifically. I think
Hmm.
there's a lot of imposter syndrome, and that comes out in me in my anxiety as well. And then one other artist that I wanted to, actually, there's a couple. One more that I really wanted to mention was Emilie Nunez. She's out of British Columbia, and she also does pottery, but she also does prints. So she does like watercolor paintings, and then she does these like whimsical characters with like ombre hair. And I don't know, I love things that are just so happy and pretty and bring out emotions that are just so, I don't know, fun.
Yeah, fun,
So
positive. Yeah.
she's a really small maker. She's just starting out, but I see so much potential in her. And we're actually going to collab on something because I came up with an idea of how to like integrate her characters into my work, and I think it's going to be amazing. But it's like that train that you just want to jump on board because it's going to be amazing. So
I can't
Emily
wait to
Nunez.
see that. Can't wait
Yeah,
to see that.
and I have one more, and I
Oh,
just popped into my head, and I'm like, oh my God, why did I not think of her before? Verso Studio. She makes the coolest art, and she is the coolest person. If you're like an artist, follow her because she's on TikTok and Instagram. She's so inspiring. It's like she sees into my soul. She makes lots of videos about like the process and how she feels about it, and just like being in touch with nature and like how it inspires her. It's so cool. But she makes wire jewelry, like it's kind of twisted jewelry. She
mm-hmm.
dips it in paper pulp, dyes it, and then covers it in resin. And it's jewelry. And it's all like focused on like inspired by nature, but definitely not realistic. So very whimsical and fun and gorgeous. Oh my God, I can't even believe I didn't think of her before now. She's such an inspiration to me in general.
Wow.
So yeah.
Yes. Well, everybody who's listening to this, make sure that you check out the YouTube video of this interview for all of these artists, their images, and also the links to their information in the show notes.
Yes, do it.
Do you have any nominations for the podcast? Now, this one has to be a stained glass artist.
Yes, I do. So there's a couple actually. Here and Now, she makes the tiniest jewelry. Her name is Helena. I think she's originally from Russia. She makes the tiniest stained glass jewelry with like gemstones and like little tiny pieces. I once asked her, I'm like, what do you use? Because it's so small. Like usually glass is 3 millimeters, right? But there's no way you would be able to work with a 3 millimeter piece of glass in the size that she works in and the scale. Um, she uses 1 millimeter thick glass.
Wow.
How does this even work? I don't know how she does it. And her work is so clean. And she's been around since I started on Etsy. So like we
Mm-hmm.
were part of like that small Etsy group back then that like we somehow connected. I don't even remember how, but because it's been so long. But
Mm-hmm.
she's super inspiring with the tiniest work. And then another one is Sheila Noseworthy. She's also in the past gone by the name Ghostwriter Mama. She does the most unique, like gallery worthy pieces. She made a surfboard out of glass in mosaic style, and she has like decorated her staircase and like oh man, like just like freehands like things and does succulents like I do, but like completely on a grand scale, and really, really, really beautiful stuff. And then one more, glass aeroplane. Her name is I have to write this down because I'm so bad at remembering names. Lauren, I don't know how to say it, Puckett or Phuket. She makes like she made this series of boys and girls, and they're all in these wire frames, but it's like individual pieces of glass that are like kind of abstract to make up their faces. I actually shared her work in my stories because I was just so blown away. It's stuff like nothing I've ever seen before, like full size like boys and girls like made out of glass. So
I will check those out.
yeah, really, really cool. All of them. I can't narrow it down any further.
That's good. That's good. Kara, where do we expect to watch you go in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see yourself going?
I'd love to kind of establish myself as a leader in like the 3D sphere of things. I'd love to work on bigger projects, grander scales. I'd like to just continue playing with how I can mix other mediums into glass. I also plan to sell tutorials and patterns for my wreaths, because it's really come to my attention that the train has taken off, and I can either sit at the front of it or I can just like start chasing people from behind, and I can't do that. So I'd love to lift other people up and help them succeed in it, and hopefully.
Where can we find you? Can we find you so we can find you on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok? What are your handles there?
It's all Glimpse Glass.
Okay.
GLIMPSE. Like glimpse of the eye, like something catches your eye. Glass. And then I'm also at glimpseglass.ca.
You are a leader. Your motivation, thank you. Your motivation is an inspiration to us all. Your energy and your soul, you're a bright, shiny light. I'm getting a lot of like yellow from you, your aura. And I just want to thank you for helping me in my mission in life to lift everybody up and just put super warm, bubbly, positive energy into the world. We need more people like you. We do.
I love that. And I'm so happy you did this podcast, because not of me, but I mean in general of the glass community, because there's so many of us.
Well, thank you again so much for joining me today, and have a lovely, wonderful, and productive day in the studio today.
Thank you so much. Yes. My daughter comes home, so this is a half productive day, but yeah, it's gonna be a good day. I hope you have an amazing day too.
I will. This definitely started it off right, so thank you for that. And I'll talk to you really soon. Mwah!
Sounds good. Amazing. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
To see more of Kara's work, her Instagram again is at Glimpse Glass, GLIMPSE GLASS, and mine is at Runa Glassworks. At the time of recording this episode with Kara, her book had obviously not yet been released, but since then it has, and I'm very happy to report that it's been getting glowing reviews. Check out the show notes for a link to purchase it. Thanks again for listening today, and if you'd like to support Cracked, I do have a Patreon page for it. There's a direct link you can click on in the show notes after every episode, or you can go to patreon.com/Runa Glassworks. That's Patreon, patreon.com/RUNAGLASSWORKS. And that's it for today. Next week is Aaron Murdoch of Snip Glass. It's a really fun one. I'll see you next time.